Hi, and welcome to my stall mats video. These stall mats were ordered from a company in the US. They're made of remanufactured tires, and they were first shipped from the company somewhere in the US to Palmetto, Florida, where my shipper is. Then they were loaded on a container, and finally they arrived in Limon. They were unloaded, they cleared customs, and they were driven up here on a truck. Now, every single stall is different. And these were supposedly kitted and packaged, each kit at a time, but because we don't have a forklift here, we have to offload them one at a time. So we're trying to take very much care that we're not mixing them. Most of the pieces are different and they all fit together. So here we go with the offloading. One piece at a time. We're finally done. We now have 6,000 pounds of remanufactured rubber lying in nice stacks. And the guy that drove it up here is being paid, and he's leaving, sticking us with the problem. We took the first four pieces, and to our great surprise, they actually assembled the floor. Now we're trying to compare it to the shipping list to figure out if we got all the pieces. The first look looks very, very good. It's nice and soft, 3/4 inch thick, and this is going to save us on sawdust and all the other things we put down for the horses and make it significantly easier to clean long term. All right, now we have to look at these 8 kits and try to figure out which ones are which. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip them back so they are in the same order as they were loaded on the pallets in the factory. That will make it significantly easier to later on figure out which ones are which. Fortunately, the factory stuck some envelopes in between the sheets indicating which kit was which. So first order of business is to get them back in the order they were packaged. Then we got to pre-assemble them to make sure that all the pieces are indeed in the right order, and that is taking place there. The staging area is the barn, and trying to figure out where each piece goes. These two guys are a little bit confused, but eventually they're going to get it right. There we go. That piece fits there. All right, next up, we're stacking them up, trying to put them in the order that we intend to install them in. But again, since we don't exactly know what kits are which, it becomes a little bit difficult, and we did make a couple of mistakes that we had to try to fix later on by moving the floors. And since each piece weighs like 150 pounds, they're not that easy to move around. Here they're trying to fit them together. They are cut with like jigsaw connectors on the edges, and since they weigh so much, the horses will not be able to pick them up. Almost done with the pre-assembly, some of the last pieces going in. And then I went back to the house, looked at the original order, and tried to figure out which kit was for which stall. And in the end, I think we got it right. So now we had to order a truckload of sand, and then we are moving on to the installation. First up, we have to do a subfloor, and that is done pretty much the same way you're laying pavers in a driveway. First you buy sand, then you compact it, level it off. The idea here is that the floors are slanted, so when the horse is peeing or pooping, the pee will run off by itself, keeping the floor nice and clean. One is distributing the sand here, and then we rented a compactor for the week, and he's going to run over there. Okay, it starts. Excellent. Running around it, compacting the sand. Unfortunately, the sand is a little bit wet, so moisture comes up, which was causing us a little bit of grief. But in the end, we just left it for about half an hour, and it was a dry day, so it would dry up. So now Juan is making circle after circle. Jorge has just been moving an extra tube there. It's almost like crop circles he's making. After this, we're putting a top layer on, which he's stamping down there. You can see the tubes are still embedded. Now we have a nice, firm, slanted, totally flat base that we're going to put the rubber back on. And Juan is just doing some final touches there. Then the tubes are out. We're filling the holes from the tube. This is a hand job. Nice and beautiful. Almost done there. Okay, now comes the cutting. These things actually either cut with a Stanley cutter or with a jigsaw. The jigsaw turned out to be significantly easier, except as you're cutting rubber, so you got to keep the vibration down. But after a few experiments, we got it right. And this material is not cheap, so I was in charge of all the markups and just directed them for the cutting. And up until this point, we have installed 4 floors, and we have yet to make a mistake. So fingers crossed, hopefully it won't happen tomorrow. Cuts nice and slowly. And the floor is done. We put Coral in, and her initial reaction is, this smells different, this looks different, it feels different. I'm not sure what to think about that. You can see her ears were back. And let's see if she loves it. Finally, in the end, she accepted.